Most new moms experience forgetfulness and memory loss, but did you know that sex may help? Scientists found that young women who had sex more often had an easier time remembering things than their less sexually active counterparts. Researchers concluded that sex can improve neurogenesis in the hippocampus or growth of nervous tissue, which yields better memory. So, do you think there's any truth to this? In your own personal judgment? My
own personal judgment is that the dad of a newborn kid was the one who conducted this study. Because I really think that many women, when they've just...
ulterior motive.
there was definitely some ulterior motive.
I keep telling my wife, honey, it's good for your brain.
No, I really think that...
Instead of doing crossword puzzles to stimulate brain growth and neuroplasticity and neurotransmitter release, just... let's have sex, honey.
Yeah, I mean, I think so I think the science behind it about the hormones and the neurotransmitters and stimulating the hippocampus is great, but I think there is an aspect, this was done on very young women, many of whom were new mothers, and their sex drive might be a lot lower. So I think it's kind of interesting because the context of this was mommy brain, which any of us who've had kids have all experienced, where you're just so tired and forgetful and exhausted. So when I read this, I was like, I wonder who did this study. Maybe it was the spouse of one of these new moms who was trying to give her yet another good reason.
Well, you were right on.
Let's just throw this out there because we've talked on the show before about how the optimal number of times to have sex is around once a week, which seems to be a sweet spot as far as quantity. And yeah, there are other people who have it every day. Yes, some people have it once a year or even less than that. But for men and women, sometimes you may not be in the mood, but it can still have these positive secondary benefits that you may not initially think about. And if this one time a week, that number, I think it's a good goal to shoot for. Whether you're a man or a woman, I think it's a nice sweet spot. And if there are these secondary benefits, you might as well at least try it. It's not like taking a drug.
If your wife's memory happens to get better in the process, so much the better.
I think also, and I think you have very elegantly touched upon this in the show, that men and women have different things they need for intimacy. And I think for men, it's often much more physical. And one way I always sort of think about it is that women have to feel loved in order to have sex, and men sort of have to have sex in order to feel loved. And if you don't sort of recognize that aspect,
that is very well put.
Thank you.
That pretty much sums it up.
And we talked about it in another show that really sex only takes, 6 to 25 minutes. It's not a huge commitment.
Well,
if it's going to have
25 minutes is it's a strong performance. If, if you're like a new parent,
I like your attitude, Dr. B.
You
can always make a little bit of time.
And you can always make the time for each other. And it is a way to connect, especially, if this is a secondary benefit that it helps you remember things, God bless. But I also think that there is a huge
Speaking of God bless the quickie, right?
Well, and that's the six.
I mean, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I think the average amount of time for sex is right around 6 minutes. That 25 minutes is if you're, that was a study where it included foreplay and everything else. Because the quickie is every now and then A-OK.